Hey everyone, I'm Amanda, and recently my life turned into a nightmare. You see, my own dad stole me from our family to get revenge on my mom. Our family has always been pretty weird. When I was 12, I already knew that mom was cheating on dad, yet I didn't want to break our family. So each time she brought another man home and took the new guest to her bedroom, I pretended not to notice that. Somehow, I still tried to believe that those were only job meetings. Maybe in regards to dad it was wrong. Yet I'm sure every single one of you would have done the same. After all, I really loved my mom. Besides, I didn't know anything about their relationship with dad. He might have known everything after all. Yet soon I discovered that he didn't. I'll never forget that day. In the morning, I went to school as usual and spent the whole school day waiting anxiously for the evening. Mom promised me to go shopping together, and I hoped she'd buy me a fashionable short top. Ah, sweet dreams. But Mom never came to pick me up. Instead of her, a very nervous dad arrived, and he arrived 3 hours early. Still, despite my objections, he took all my stuff from the locker, ordered me to go to the car's back seat, and drove away in a hurry. At first, I felt really confused. Then I got scared. I thought that something really bad had happened to Mom, and now she was in the hospital. You see, Dad drove in a really crazy way, and that fact alone almost drove me nuts. Soon we got to the hospital, but of course we drove past it without any stops. I panicked, cried, asked Dad what was going on, but he kept silent. Even when I told him I needed to go to the bathroom and asked to stop at the gas station, he just shook his head and gave me an empty bottle. I still can't understand what I should have done with that. Dad stopped the car when we were already in another state. He dropped me off at some motel, took my phone away, brought me some food, went away and locked the door behind him. I didn't understand anything and I was incredibly scared. I even thought that Dad went mad, and now I had to travel to some godforsaken place in the company of a literal psychopath. The following day our journey continued. At least Dad was back to his old self and actually talked to me. He said that Mom tricked us all that time, that she only pretended to be a good wife and nice mother, and that she dumped us. I asked him to let me talk to her, but he refused. Finally, we came to the seashore and moved to some old bungalow. There was no Wi-Fi there, and the nearest payphone was several miles away. Besides, there were almost no people there. Only me, my dad, and a pair of elders who looked after the bungalow. There we dwelled for a while. At times, Dad drove off to buy some food, brought me books and magazines. He even made a deal with the school officials. They passed me my homework through him, and he made sure that I continued studying properly. In the evenings, I swam in the ocean, or more often, just cried in my room. I felt alone and terrified. I realized that Dad found out about Mom cheating on him. Besides, I was sure that he just blatantly stole me out of our family to get revenge on her. He never told me anything about that, of course. Yet the facts served as proof. We dwelled in some godforsaken place, and he even forbade me to talk to anyone or to use a phone. Therefore, I was sure that Dad was trying to get back at Mom using me. After all, Mom always told me that she loved me. I imagined how sad she was now that I was gone. I almost saw her sitting in our living room, crying, while police officers searched the house for traces of a kidnapping. Of course, I tried to contact her many times. Once I even ran away from the bungalow and found a payphone. Unfortunately, it was broken, and I had no time to search for another one. Dad found me first, and locked me in my room for 3 days straight as a punishment. So I just kept writing letters, gave them to our elder workers, and asked the elders to bring those to the mail. In a month, we finally returned home. Unfortunately, Mom was already not there. She took all her things with her, and I couldn't reach her via phone. I called her multiple times, but each time, a robot answered and said that the number was out of service. I went back to school, made peace with my friends, but I haven't seen Mom ever again. All the grown-ups looked at me with pity, but staunchly refused to tell me anything about my mom. It was like she never existed. Now I really hate Dad. I don't even talk to him anymore. I am sure that he is the blame for everything. Mom left without saying goodbye, and that's definitely his fault. Maybe she was trying to protect me that way. Soon, I'll become an adult myself, and then I'll be able to find all the answers I need. I'll definitely find my mom, no matter the cost. And I'll make my dad answer for all that he did to me.
Hi, I'm Ron, Amanda's father, and not so long ago, I found out that my family wasn't perfect at all. Me and my beloved became husband and wife when we finished college. We were 100% sure that we'd love each other forever. Soon, our little Amanda was born. I was so happy. Beloved wife, cute daughter, nice job, a house of our own, an American dream come true. I was sure that in a year or two after Amanda's birth, my beloved would gift me with another child or two. In my dreams, my darling was a housekeeper, and I was happy to return home to my wife and children. Unfortunately, my dreams never came true. When Amanda was 3, my wife hired a nanny, and I went back to work. She told me that she wanted to pursue a career, not to be bound between diapers and a stove. Well, I supported her decision. I wanted another future for ourselves. That's true. Yet, my wife was happy pursuing a career, and most of all, I wanted her happy. So there's that. Soon, it turned out that my wife's work is quite tiring. I got used to coming home early, cooking dinners and suppers, playing with the daughters, doing laundry, and so on and so forth. I didn't really mind that, and my wife was pretty busy with her career. Later on, she refused to have another child because of her work. I supported that decision as well. Funny thing is, she paid minimal attention to our daughter. It was I who spent the most time with her. I read her fairy tales, told her stories, walked with her, and even learned how to braid her hair so that my princess would be the most beautiful kid in kindergarten. Sometimes a nanny helped me, but that's it. My wife literally never tried to do what I did, and that was pretty weird. As for me, my career isn't that important. At least you shouldn't be pursuing it to the extent of forgetting about your only child. You see, the existing situation worried me greatly. Yet when Amanda grew up a bit and became a teenager, everything got fixed. Now, my girls spent a lot of time together. They've got some secrets of their own, some common interests, some things dear to both of them. I felt so much joy. Now I was finally sure that my daughter won't feel lonely and won't think that her mother didn't love her. But one evening, my life got unexpectedly torn into shreds. A neighbor asked me for help with his security camera. We've got such cameras in every yard, and his broke down. I'm pretty good with tech, so he asked me whether I could fix it. Well, I fixed his camera and accidentally switched the security footage on the exact moment of some stranger's car entering my yard. In silence, I watched some unknown man enter my home, with my wife greeting him with a passionate kiss. In a second, my whole life crumbled to pieces. I just couldn't believe it, but the recording spoke for itself. To be 100% sure, I hired a private detective. I hoped for him to tell me that my recording was corrupted, that I was mistaken. Unfortunately, the footage just faithfully depicted the latest episode of my wife's antics. It turned out that my wife was cheating on me for some time now, and the worst thing was that she did so under the very eyes of our daughter. She brought men into her bedroom in the sight of Amanda and rolled around with them while our child sat in the neighboring room. As soon as I knew about that, I made up my mind. We had to divorce. My wife was actually all for it. She even told me that she was gonna leave Amanda under my care. According to my wife, a daughter would only be an obstacle for her private life. She even wanted to tell that to our girl in person, yet I forbade her to do so. I was sure it would be incredibly traumatic for a kid. So I took my daughter far away, while her mother packed her things and flew to another country with her lover. I didn't want Amanda to see how her beloved mother dumped her because of another man. Maybe I was wrong, but at the time, I was sure that in such way I won't at least hurt my daughter's feelings. My strategy was a success. My ex-wife flew away and even changed her number. She never actually tried to contact Amanda, yet I never found the strength to tell my girl that her own mother left her. Now my girl doesn't trust me at all and actually hates me. I tried talking to her many times, but she simply refuses to listen. I don't really know what to do and how to tell her that I'm not her enemy.
Hey guys, I'm Eva, and I'm the most terrible mom in the world. Just because I haven't loved my kid for a long time, and I have a reason for it, You can judge me or you can support me. I don't care. I just want to tell you my story. When I was 16, I fell in love. You know, as all teens do. Love at first sight and forever. Although this wasn't the truth. But it felt like it was a serious love with a punch of drama. My parents were against our relationship because I had to pay attention to my studies and think about my future. But who's going to listen to them at that age? I started to date Nick. He was a nice guy, but a persistent one. And in some short time, our friendship turned into something closer. My parents demanded to break all contact with him. They said I would do silly things that I would just regret later, but I ignored them again. I thought our love was forever. I even planned, after school and college, we would marry and buy a house with a garden and with a pool on the backyard. Nick will find a good job, I will raise our kids, and do some garden stuff, and our garden will be the best in the world. Nick only laughed at me and my dreams, but he did it kindly, and said that he didn't mind if everything turned out that way. We were happy together for a whole year. After I got pregnant, I don't know how come, because Nick assured me everything was under control. But in one moment, my period didn't start and I did a test that showed 2 stripes, which meant that I was pregnant. My mom and I have a really great relationship, so I decided not to hide anything. I went to tell her about the situation. I thought maybe Mom would help me or something, but unexpectedly, they told me that I must give birth and there are no other options. They said, like, if you know how to get pregnant, so you can do everything and we'll help you. And I had a lot more than half a year before my graduation exams, so I had enough problems with my adult problems. But my parents understood that yelling was useless and they should start to persuade me. They also had doctors on their side who examined me. They all repeated that they would help me, and that kids are a joy, and that they should not be abandoned. They did everything for me not to let me do anything stupid. And I don't know why. Maybe to have some diversity, I obeyed them. I told Nick about that, but he wasn't so happy to know that he's gonna be a father. But he didn't break up with me. We continued dating. He even cared about me. He asked that I would come home earlier and watched that I wore warm clothes. Unfortunately, it couldn't last long. After graduation, when I already had quite a big baby bump, he went to college that we planned to enter together. I, of course, didn't enter because I was gonna give birth to my kid in a few months. Mom tried to calm me down, like, give birth, and next year you're gonna continue your education, and they'll be with my baby at that time. Of course, I was ashamed for losing a relationship. I really loved Nick, but you know, when you have a 7-month baby bump, there's no time for romance. All of my pregnancy, my parents didn't leave me at all. They gave me some healthy food, looked after my weight and health. They listened to how a baby pushed inside. So they were the best parents. Unlike me, I didn't get the idea. I was unable to sleep. It was hard to breathe. And the closer we got to the birth date, the worse I got. The baby was pushing and moving inside of me. And it seemed that it was not a new little life inside of me. It was an alien, an outsider. Mom told me that a maternal instinct would come later, but it was hard to believe her words. I wasn't ready to become a mother. Not mentally, not physically, you know. It was my parents' idea to save this kid, not mine. And I did this just because they promised me to care about my baby. And I was just scared. I was told some terrifying stories about birthing and that awful pain in the hospital. It happened so that I had to go to the hospital a month early because the doctor said that there was something wrong. And rooms for pregnant women were on the same floor where the delivery room was. I have never heard such an amount of suffering and crying. Bloodied, exhausted, unconscious girls were taken out from there on a gurney and sent further to the floor above, where they came to their senses and received their newborns in their arms. Yes, Already rosy and insanely happy mothers were discharged from the hospital, but we saw a horror. It was weird, but my delivery was normal. Maybe it was because of my body complexion, maybe something else, but I didn't feel pain. I don't remember me screaming or anything. A little bit of a scratching feeling in my baby bump, and the doctor put my baby on my chest. A little wrinkled, but a real one. At first, I honestly got scared of what I saw. And where is the plump and sweet creature that they draw in the pictures? The only thing that calmed me down was that all the kids who were in the hospital looked the same as mine, and they screamed, just yelling non-stop. I was afraid to come to my baby, to touch him, and it was not because of my maternal instincts, or as my roommate said, "He is so tiny. How can I touch him?" Honestly, partly it was true. He was tiny enough to lie on my hands, but I felt nothing. And later, Mark and I were taken home. Everything went really well for the first time. The hospital psychologist prescribed me pills, which I took in handfuls. I don't know how it helped with the postpartum depression I was diagnosed with, but they helped me to put up with what was happening, and my mom completely took care of my son. Fortunately for me, Mark totally refused breastfeeding, so they didn't even bring him to be fed. Most days, I spent in my room watching the walls. I was good, and one day, all the pills ran out. Mom had to return to her job. Mark was half a year old, and he looked like other kids in pictures. Such a plump one, with little chunky rolls on his arms and legs, smiling teethless. But it didn't add any love for him. My parents went to work and returned in the evening. I had to live by the timetable of this little human. Rise, eat, burp, change diapers, sleep, eat, burp. And so I was in a circle 24/7, like a squirrel in a wheel. I mean, 24 hours because my mom, of course, tried to help us, but she worked. And at night, she was supposed to sleep to go somewhere in the morning. But Mark didn't sleep. He didn't have to work. I felt nothing, but I decided to do everything for my kid. And I got up, stroked the diapers, sat a baby on the baby toilet, in general, read a lot of forums to become the best mom. And the more I tried, the more happy Mark became. And the more I hated my whole life. Of course, I didn't go to college, because who will take care of the kid? There was no money for a nanny in the family. My parents continued to work, so I had to forget about my higher education. Can I at least go out somewhere? Yes, of course. There's a playground. You don't like it? There's also a hospital, a shop with a farm, organic products, and another playground, a little further from home. Why don't you like that? Friends, going to the movies, relationships, all this remained in the distant past. But in the present, well, you remember, yes, diapers, feeding, sleeping, and educational games which were necessary. I expected a bright turning point to come soon, when I say, yes, this is my son, and I love him more than my life, but that moment did not come. On the contrary, the farther it got, the worse the situation got for me. I really started to be afraid of myself, because I understood that it wasn't okay. Then me and my parents decided I would return to the psychologist. It was the best decision in my life. It turned out that the problem was not in me, and especially not in Mark. It turned out that the worst thing is not in going mad, but in ordinary hormones. And I'm not crazy. I'm just sick. And I really needed to be treated, because it can pass itself. But until that moment, I'll ruin everything that I have. My mom was babysitting with Mark again, and Nick appeared and helped her sometimes. And I took some pills, ate healthy food, and I was undergoing intensive therapy with a psychotherapist. In the end, I felt as I once had a long time ago.
Hello everyone, I'm Richard. I'm 16, and several days ago I finally accepted that all my life I have been a fatherless kid despite my dad being alive and well. My dad, my mom, and me have a very strange relationship. Dad is the undisputed master of the house, the head of the family. He's got a great job, he's a programmer, and a damn good one. Father provides for the family, brings food to the table, and pays for each and every of mom's and my own needs. There's only one rule. In our house, my mother and I should dance to whatever tune Dad sings and never stand up to him. Otherwise, a real nightmare begins. Dad loses his temper very quickly, and when he gets angry, he throws ugly tantrums. Of course, even when he's mad, he never crosses any red lines. Father is a very proud and scrupulous man. He would never dare to lay his hands against me or Mom. Unfortunately, he's an expert in emotional abuse. Dad has perfect memory. He remembers all our missteps, both real and imaginary ones. But his most favorite excuse for tantrums is a case that happened long ago. In all the years we lived together as a family, I was told this story so many times that now I can recite it by heart. You see, 10 months before I was born, Mom and Dad got in a huge fight. They already lived together at the moment, but Dad managed to annoy Mom so much that she moved to her parents and spent a week at their place. That was the only time Mom left home because of the dad, and she never did so afterwards. I bet my father got terribly offended. Dad really loved Mom, but in his own way. Moreover, I was sure that he still loves her even now. But to my mind, he was really insulted at the moment. Dad simply couldn't comprehend that his woman refused to recognize his legitimate supremacy and even ran away from him. Guess he considered it a blasphemy. Mom stayed at her parents for a week. Then they made peace with Dad, and a couple of weeks later, it turned out she was pregnant. Unfortunately, my father never really forgave his wife for that daring escape of her. Moreover, since the dad acquired an awful fixed idea. For some reason, Dad is absolutely sure that Mom cheated on him during their short breakup, and therefore I am not his child. The most interesting thing is that the father still decided to stay with Mom despite his fixation on her betrayal. Well, he really got on her nerves during the pregnancy with the constant nagging. And then, when I was born, Dad started to blame us both during his bouts of anger. And he never tires to remind Mom and me about the infidelity of her. You see, I am already 15, but each time Dad decides to yell, he always brings this topic back with perverse pleasure. It seems to me that he really likes to blame Mom for infidelity. Each time, Dad emphasizes that he has all the reasons to be angry. He even allegedly took my blood samples when I was really small and paid for a full genetic examination. Its results, of course, confirmed my father's point of view, and once and for all made Mom a traitor, and turned me into a full-fledged bastard. The funny thing is that neither I nor Mom have ever seen those results. As of now, my mother gave up long ago and stopped asking Dad for a proof. I, on the other hand, really want to see those papers. Unfortunately, Dad hid them long ago and would never tell us where they are kept. I've asked him to show me the papers many times, but each time he just yelled at me and refused to show me anything. He once even told me that he kept me around only out of pity, and therefore I got no right to demand anything of him. Mother had long since learned to ignore Dad's accusations. Now, after all these years, she considers his constant tantrums to be akin of thunderstorms, tempests, or snowfalls. Dad's temper is like a natural disaster to her. It may make a lot of noise, but it will still ultimately go away. But I was really troubled by Dad's angry speeches. You see, I have inherited my temper straight from Dad. Well, at least Mom's influence allowed me to grow up a little more calm and sane. Thanks to her upbringing, I don't usually talk back much to Dad when he becomes mad and starts yelling yet again. I often manage to keep my temper in check, although it still requires a huge effort from me. Confronting Dad is the same as trying to empty the Atlantic with a tablespoon, a completely futile affair. I was raised by and large by my mom only. Dad either spent a lot of time at work or preferred to go about his business. Mom told me that once she tried to ask him to partake in my upbringing, but Dad, as usual, made a scene. He told her that I was just her kid, not his, and he already has been giving her more than enough money to sustain both of us. To add insult to injury, I didn't look like Dad at all when I was a child. I began to resemble him only when I became a teenager. Well, I was always similar to Dad in temper, being proud and unyielding and all. But I guess for him that didn't really count. My mom, on the other hand, is a kind but passive person. Fortunately, my mother is soft and compliant, but very smart. She understood that she needed an outside assistance to properly bring me up. My father flatly refused to participate in my upbringing. It was useless to contact his relatives. They weren't too fond of Mom and actually even despised her. But my mom's father happily came to the rescue, and his assistance was very useful to both of us. The grandfather taught me well. Thanks to his lessons, I was able to fend for myself at kindergarten and then at school. And as for money, I've already mentioned that my mom and I never really needed it. I had any toys, clothes, and gadgets I've ever wanted, and Dad's money provided me with a place in an elite kindergarten and school and the best private tutors across the land. In short, I had everything. But from an early age, I had an impossible dream. I dreamed about my father recognizing me as his rightful heir. In my fantasies, Dad actually took time to sit and talk with me and admitted that he had been wrong and I was really his son. Alas, this had never happened. No matter what I did, no matter how hard I tried, my father always turned his back to me. For him, I was always a bastard, and therefore utterly insignificant. For example, when I was a kindergarten pupil, everybody praised my drawings. But when I got up the courage to show one to my dad, he simply crumpled it and threw it into the garbage bin without ever a single look. At school, I was the best in the exact sciences, and even won international competitions. Dad couldn't care less. I went in for sports, became an athlete, and he still considered me a nobody. Father stubbornly refused to see me as his legitimate son, and I really wanted to prove myself to him. Alas, I guess he grew too used to thinking of me as an unworthy bastard. I even tried to learn programming in order to at least achieve recognition of my dad as a professional. You must have already guessed the result. You already understand what the result was. Dad still didn't care about me. Good thing I really liked programming, though. I liked it so much that now I even plan to become a full-fledged programmer in the future. My mentor once told me that I had a natural talent for programming. My mom and I are 100% sure whom I got it from. Dad, however, still thinks I'm not his child. Once I got so tired of it that I even asked Mom whether she really had cheated on Dad. As expected, she told me that I definitely was his son. In fact, during that fateful week, she did nothing but cried her eyes out. You see, she really loved Dad, and she loves him still, although she sometimes wonders how she had managed to fall in love with such a stubborn man. I finally lost my patience a year ago, right after Dad's another tantrum. My obsession with Dad's approval disappeared the same day. Earlier, I was ready for anything just to get his praise. And since then, it just lost any meaning to me. I suppose that I still love my father in a way, and I definitely respect him because of his professional achievements. After all, he is an excellent specialist. But I stopped looking up to him once and for all. They say that every boy wants to grow up just like a dad. Well, I really wanted to be like him, to earn his respect until that very moment. Although I'm still a teenager, I understand perfectly well, as long as my father provides me with everything, I have no chance to build a life of my own. So I focused on reaching the financial independence from him. Fortunately, this ended up not so difficult. Since childhood, I used to work like a buffalo, hoping that my father would recognize it and finally pay attention to me. The desire to prove my talent to Dad was long gone, but the work habits remained. And now, when everyone and their mother operate through the internet, a good programmer finds a job in no time, even if the said programmer is not 18 yet. A year of hard work as a freelance programmer allowed me to finish a huge number of projects, and some of them already earned good money for the customers. Of course, I also got a nice cut. With Mom's help, I opened the card, and now I've got a substantial deposit of my own. Besides, some of my former employers already want to hire me as a full-time employee. In fact, I've already got 4 job offers. The managers of those companies are ready to hire me as soon as I turn 18. Unfortunately, it seems that I still got a desire to prove something to my father. Recently, I realized that I could order a genetic examination of my own. I had enough money, and Mother provided me with all the needed assistance. It seemed like a great chance to stick it to Dad once and for all. Yes, I might discover that he was right all along, but I was willing to undertake such a risk. Only when the expertise was in full swing, I realized how important it has been for me to finally discover the truth. I felt so nervous that I even canceled all my work projects. I simply could not concentrate on programming. I wanted a 100% accurate result, so I even ordered 3 separate genetic examinations in 3 different firms. Can you imagine my delight when I received 3 results on the same day, and all of them irrefutably confirmed I was really my father's son? Of course, I hurried home to share the news with my parents. Mom was extremely happy, but Dad threw major temper tantrum. I've never seen him that angry in my whole life. He accused me of humiliating him in public, screamed at me, and then unexpectedly snatched the documents right out of my hands. He never actually looked at them, just tore everything, threw the remains in the trash, and explicitly forbade me to bring him such atrocious fakes. To say that I got angry is to say nothing. I've undertaken so much work, spent so much money and energy, and all for nothing. Now I sincerely think that nothing would help Dad except for a really good therapist. Unfortunately, he would never agree to it, and no one would ever be able to persuade him. Mom is already used to Dad's quirks and temper tantrums. It would never occur to her to even try to change him. And Dad himself believes that he's always right. As for me, I'm just too tired of spitting in the wind. Now I guess I have no other way but to leave home and never to return. It is useless to even try to prove anything to Dad. In his world, there are 2 versions of any event, his own and the wrong one. I feel sorry for Mom, of course, but she's already used to him, and she would never contradict him. And I'm already fed up with his cruel tantrums.
Hi, bros. Call me Matthew. I want to tell you about my problem. It's still going on, and I don't know if it's going to end or not, but I can't live with it anymore. It's killing me. I met Ellie when we were 16. It was by accident, in the library. In fact, we don't go there really often, only to read something needed for our studies. So we decided it was our destiny to meet each other, and we started chatting and dating. Ellie was really the sunniest cutie. That didn't make me any problems. She wasn't jealous about my GFs, didn't make me tell her where I was, why I was not with her at the moment. Anyway, she didn't ask me anything about gifts, too. She was happy to get a usual bunch of flowers from the flower bed. So, that kind of relationship were a dream of any guy. But I started to understand it was not for me sometime later. She was cool, but I wanted something more. More fire, maybe? I understood that. I started looking at hot girls that preferred high heels even on the off-road and that often wore miniskirts. My friend had exactly that kind of girl. She liked jealousy dramas, paid him some special attention, and always took the initiative. I liked it. I wanted that kind of feeling, as they had, because everything was sparkling around him. And Ellie was just a cozy, warm, and close girl. She was more like a sister than like a girlfriend to me. I wanted just to keep her safe and nothing more. At my teen age, I could be sexually excited even when I accidentally saw a girl's ankle, but I didn't have such a reaction to Ellie, at all. Step by step, I got further from her. I didn't want to make her suffer, but I just couldn't continue this one. My friends suggested me to try some flirting with one of the queens that prefer one-time dates, but I couldn't cheat on Ellie at the same time. So I decided I will finish school and then finish my relations with her. It could be some soft breakup, kinda, it's not because of you, it's because of me, bae. Life is such a strange thing, baby. And I could move to another town to enter a college. It seemed to me that she understood the thing about the breakup herself because she became nervous and, judging by her red eyes, She often cried. But I had nothing to give her. I couldn't put the love for her in my head, because if I could, I would press all this love chemistry and hormones in my head as much as I could. I really tried. I didn't want to hurt her. In the end of it all, after the prom, she said she was going with me to enter my college. She even got an answer from it earlier than me, but I was preparing for it since my primary school, and I knew exactly she planned to study the art. It was the first time when I understood the meaning of the metaphor, get someone on the lockdown. Unfortunately, it wasn't the last gift from our relationships. At the first year at college, when I was running away from her, she found out she had cancer. Nobody knew how it could happen, that a young, absolutely healthy girl got this, but I definitely couldn't break up with my ill girl now. I would kill her, really. That's why I forgot about my wishes and promised her to be with her as long as she needed. I didn't think it could be so long because it was cancer on the 3rd stage, so it was a train to nowhere. We started the treatment. I mean, she started and I was with her, as I promised. Endless chemotherapy, mental breakdowns, fallen out hair. My sunny cutie turned into her own shadow, and holding hands, the only thing she asked me about was not to leave her. I was not going to because I gave her a promise. I don't know. Maybe the treatment was good. Maybe everything was not so bad as her parents and doctors said. They also said that my love helped her. Ellie got a remission. The cancer disappeared. But the thing was not in love. I was really happy for her, as everybody was. After that, of course, there was a long recovery. I spent it with her and all that time. You can think it was because I felt sorry for her if you want to, but the reason did not matter. Ellie started shining with her smile again, living her ordinary life. I was sitting and thinking how we can break up. The problem was that I fell in love, and that girl agreed to date me. She even knew about Ellie, but I couldn't do that. I couldn't break up. Oh yeah, I'm a dweeb. At the end of it all, the girl I fell in love with came up to me and said she liked me, but she couldn't wait forever, so I had a choice. Either I make a decision, or she would definitely find somebody else with no problems, and I made that decision. I came to Ellie, call her out, and just when I was about to open my mouth, she showed me a lot of documents with analysis. The cancer returned. That remission was not so long, you know. It was only half a year, and cancer came back. I really hated all the hospital smell. Of course I didn't break up again. Could you leave a good person at these hard times? I couldn't. I had a lot of nightmares where I was breaking up with her, and she died after my words. That dream really came all the time, and in the reality I held her hand and asked her to be strong and fight. Nobody said and nobody believed that she would revive. Of course, the other girl ceased any communications with me and found another guy who didn't care much about his ex-present girl. I don't even blame her. Only myself for my softness. What prevented me from acting as a man? Just break these unnecessary gum-like relationships. Nothing but my conscience. And I was left face to face with a broken heart, a sick girl, and the endless procedures that made Ellie feel better, but not at all. The doctors didn't even make bets, because it was equally probable that she would die in an hour or in 10 years. Positive emotions, they said. Love makes miracles. I probably don't know anything about love, but at 18 I'm sitting at the bedside of a dying friend and thinking about when she's already decided where she should stay in, or heaven or here. It's kinda, you know. If earlier I felt at least pity to her, but now there was nothing left but the desire for everything to be over soon. At some point, I forced myself to come and sit next to her, because every time she reminded me of my promise. If I was a responsible guy, She was just a little sick girl who did not want to let go of her dreams of a happy life. And, I'm not acting selfish here. At some point, I realized that I just couldn't stand it anymore. Either I would go crazy or do something terrible with our relationship. And then I decided to talk to her honestly. Ellie just happened to be on another good short period of time when she could listen, and I decided to talk to her. I sat down and started telling her I couldn't do that anymore, that I wanted to leave her and not come back, that I had my whole life ahead and I did not want to spend it in the hospital room with a girl that I did not like. She was silent, didn't even move. Only tears flowed down her cheeks. I left, and after half an hour, they called me from the hospital and said that Ellie was in a very serious condition in intensive care. She somehow pulled out a catheter dropper from a vein and turned off the apparatus. Suicide attempt. Well, I think you know how it all ended. I returned. I apologized, begged her not to do anything stupid anymore, and again promised that I would be with her until the very end, and she agreed. I am now 20. Ellie is doing fine, and she still makes me come to her. I hate her, myself, and my life. I have a feeling I would die before she lets me go, but I can't say no to the dying one. Maybe it's really fate we met and everything turned out in such a wild, creepy way. Or is this punishment to me for my indecision? I don't know. Only I do not care. I look at my comrades who are doing very well. A couple of them even got kids already, and I fiercely envy them, because all that awaits me is a hospital ward and a person I hate.
Hi everybody, I'm Daphne. Several months ago, I became involved in an extra creepy story with unforeseen consequences. The thing is, our own teachers appeared to be horrible people. They blatantly used us to earn money, and we hadn't suspected anything till the very end. Even worse, now we are afraid that the consequences of their actions will come back to bite us in the future. Physical education was a compulsory subject for us, just like the more serious subjects, such as physics or mathematics. Our school was regarded as a special educational facility for future military personnel. There were even special cadet classes for the future students of military universities. Strictly speaking, we have a variety of physical education lessons. We have a pool, a football team, gymnastics for girls, and of course, military training courses. This way, if you don't really like some activities, you can give them a wide berth and choose from the rest. For example, I attend swimming and gymnastics, and my good friend signed up for martial training for some reason. Still, no matter what kind of physical training you choose, and no matter what class you go to, locker rooms are the same for everyone. Boys have a room in the basement, girls have a room on the ground floor, both with a shower and personal lockers. I'm going into detail about that just so you understand. Everyone has a physical education course of some sort, and there's no other place to change clothes. It's very important, and soon you will understand why. One not-so-fine day, my classmates and I finished a swimming session, and I noticed something was wrong with the extractor hood. Usually, the hood in our locker room, just next to the shower, had no gaps, but that day, I noticed a small gap. I thought that it was simply broken and really didn't care. I told my teacher about it and went about my business. After all, there's a repairman at school that should take care of such things. But in a few days, a friend of mine complained that the extractor hood was still broken. She told me that it was cold in the locker room and something was rustling in the pipes, as if it was stuck there and rinsing in the world. We, being naive children, decided to check everything by ourselves. We borrowed a ladder from a school technician, climbed up, and immediately noticed something was sticking out of the ajar panel. There was a camera sloppy hidden in the hood. People usually install such small cameras in cars or hide them in offices. Sort of a spy craft. Even worse, the camera was obviously working. I remind you, we were in the girls' locker room, where us, the girls, go to shower and then move naked around the premises. Moreover, the locker room was one of the same for both first grader girls and almost adult girls from high school. Naturally, we immediately turned in this strange find to the headmaster. We were worried. Nobody knew who received the transmission from the camera. The headmaster said, "We have nothing to worry about." Allegedly, such cameras had been installed throughout the school, and they had been hidden in order not to embarrass the students. This had been done for our security due to the threat of terrorism. He also added that the cameras were an excellent safety measure against theft. If someone wanted to steal things from another one's locker, the teachers would be able to find a culprit because of the cameras. We calmed down and went about our business, and the camera was left in the office. Later on at home, I told my parents about the camera. I didn't complain or anything. I just mentioned that the school's management had been fighting against theft, with cameras everywhere, including the locker room. My dad, who's a lawyer, asked me for details, and I described all that had happened before to him. At the moment, he didn't say a word to me on the topic, but the very next day, dozens of policemen, some even with dogs, visited our school and checked each and every premise. They found more cameras in both locker rooms, hidden in different places. The cameras were deployed in such a way as to capture the view from showers, lockers, and even toilets. There were also cameras in the first aid post, in the dining room, and in every classroom. Even I, a naive 16-year-old girl, finally understood that the cameras weren't there to prevent theft or to spot terrorists. Then a major investigation happened, which costed our school the headmaster, 2 sports teachers, and a nurse. It turned out that these kind, bright people had a business of selling erotic videos with children. Cameras recorded every student's movements, and then one of the PE teachers edited especially interesting moments from the footage. The films were burned on discs and then distributed through the darknet to people interested in such kinds of stuff. The culprits weren't filming the youngsters from elementary grades. They were interested in 14-year-old children and up. But still, the amount of filmed material was horrifying. Nobody knows how long they had been doing this and how many videos have already been sold to the interested buyers. Our city was terrified by the results of the investigation. The parents of some students even wanted to lynch the headmaster and company because their children were filmed in candid videos. But my dad and several other lawyer parents made sure everything was under the law. The headmaster was sentenced to 20 years in prison. The teachers received similar terms, and the nurse was simply deprived of a license. She didn't participate in their business, she simply knew about the cameras and did not interfere. Now, we all live in fear. No one knows anything about the buyers of the videos. What if some of those perverts decided to abduct his or her favorite actor? The culprits didn't do a thing to conceal the faces of the children. The address of the school is known to everyone. It would be very easy to gather all the personal data of all of us. Besides, the very fact that some perverts paid money to look at our naked bodies isn't really making our lives easier, to say the least. This horror has led me to a very ambiguous conclusion. No one can be safe anywhere. Those people's duty was to take care of me and to protect me, and they betrayed me and everyone else. Who should I even believe except my family? People who must take care of and protect themselves allow themselves such things. Then who should they even believe? Hi all, I'm Angela, and I've got a rather commonplace problem. A lot of people suffer like I did, but that doesn't make the situation better. After all, it always feels bad when your parents love your younger siblings more. Once, I was the beloved child in the family. We've got a lot of relatives, you see. A lot of cousins, uncles, aunts, grandpas, and grandmas who are always around. Yet, I've always separated my nearest circle from all the other family members. My circle consisted of only mom and dad. They loved me, sang me lullabies, and tended to my scratched knees. I knew that they'd always be with me and care about me, but I never made use of their love, I swear. You see, I am not a capricious child. I honestly believe that if you are treated well, you should correspond. If your parents trust you, you mustn't betray their trust. You must always gift them something in return, as it should be. I studied well, as if I actually have some reputation to uphold. I rarely even received something less than an A. The only 2 exceptions to the rule were PE and math. I was never really good at PE, and our math teacher just plain didn't like me. Tell me, how the absence of a full stop at the end of a sentence could ever matter in math? I was always sure that in math, numbers mattered, not the punctuation marks. Still, Mom and Dad never scolded me for this. They even went to school and had a talk with my math teacher to understand the situation better. Everything was great until I got a brother. My parents were a brave bunch. They decided to make a second child when their firstborn was already 13. Of course, they didn't bother to tell me about that beforehand. One day, Mom just touched her belly in a very special way and told me that soon I'd have a brother. I was so glad to hear that. At the moment, the whole idea of getting a younger brother seemed really cool to me. Besides, Mom and Dad looked so happy back then. My parents even looked younger. Mom in particular was so beautiful with that bulging belly of her. Dad and I were really protective of her and gave her everything she wanted. But then my brother was born, and we entered the period of endless taking care of the baby fuss. Now my parents looked like 2 very tired shadows, and the situation grew even more bothersome with each passing day. I helped them as much as I could, but it was quite hard for me as well. One day, I woke up and found myself standing in the middle of the room with my little brother in my arms, singing a lullaby to him. It was the middle of the night, and it felt horrible. My brother's teething, stomach cramps, his first steps, and his first word. I experienced it all. Sometimes it seemed to me that he was actually my child, because I was always somewhere near him. Still, I enjoyed helping Mom take care of the baby. And the kid himself was so cute, joyful, always smiling. I played with him and read him fairy tales. But then Mark slowly became the center of my family's attention. Once, for example, I came home at the end of the semester with a report card full of A's and A+. I even got a special certificate of appreciation. Yet no one even congratulated me. Mark just told Mom and Dad a simple poem that I helped to memorize the day before. And they, together with other relatives, showered him with praise. No one paid any attention to me. I felt like I was nothing. Then I noticed that Mom and Dad simply stopped caring about me. I could stay at the school's library till dark and come home late at night and nobody even cared. Yet when Mark scratched his knee on the playground, my parents called the ambulance. And such things happened all the time. It started out small, but soon, Mom and Dad just somehow forgot about me altogether. They even forgot about my birthday of all things. Dad just kissed me on the cheek and went to work. But Mom had no time to do even that. She drove Mark to some workshop, and then the 2 of them went to a theme park as a reward for his successes. Of course, there were no gifts and no cake. I wasn't Mark. I wasn't important. But in a month, Mom and Dad threw a grand celebration. You see, it was Mark's 3rd birthday, and that date became our family's greatest holiday of the year. That really showed the difference between him and me. My parents thought only about Mark. They concentrated on his well-being and paid no attention at all to any achievements of mine. I became an honor roll student, was awarded some actual grants for my history project, and even won a trip abroad. Yet at home, I got reprimanded for not helping Mom enough with Mark. Frankly speaking, I didn't even want to see him anymore. I felt like he had stolen everything from me. Of course, that was a stupid thought. Mark was a totally sweet child. It wasn't his fault that our parents decided to neglect me. Yet, I couldn't stand it anymore. When I turned 17, I left home forever. I didn't enter the university I was dreaming about since childhood. Instead, I went to a nearby college because they allowed high school graduates to enter and granted me a dorm room. I just wanted to leave my former home as soon as possible. Now I live in a dorm, study a lot, earn my own living, and work towards being the very best once again. But now for my own sake. I don't actually communicate with Mom and Dad, except sending them some greeting cards and occasional gifts for Mark. Mom sent me several letters where she chided me for leaving the family and offered for me to return. Yet, I won't return to those who never cared about me.
Hi, I'm Karen, Angela's mom. I really want my daughter to just come back to the family, to come home, but I'm afraid it's already too late. Yet, I still hold out for hope that she'll understand my point of view. Once upon a time, I thought I had a perfect family. Unfortunately, this turned out to be just an illusion. It's really hard to admit that I might have been the one that destroyed my perfect little family all by myself. My husband and I have a loving and wonderful marriage, a rarity these days. We met as teenagers and have never separated. Soon, we're even going to celebrate 20 years of marriage, a big anniversary. When we were only teens, my husband courted me in such romantic ways. There were kisses in the moonlight, dancing, starry nights spent together, all that sort of stuff. And once, during a date, we looked at the stars together, and I made a wish on a shooting star. I wished to always be as happy as we were in that moment. For a long time, I thought that my wish had come true, even more so when we had little Angela. She grew up as a funny, smart, and soft kid. My husband and I loved her, and still do love her so very much. She was our little ray of sunshine, the center of our lives. And of course, we really tried to ensure that our little sunshine was always smiling. We got so lucky. Angela appeared to be calm and collected even as a baby. She actually learned how to read before she could even properly speak. Somehow she always knew the difference between right and wrong, and she never hesitated to ask about things she didn't understand. I remember looking at all the other children, spoiled and capricious, and I realized that my Angela never made any fuss. Even when she was teething, she didn't cry or moan. My daughter just concentrated on gnawing at that toy, and that was it. And since her very first days, she was always trying to think before acting. Come to think of it, we never had any problems with Angela before. She was the epitome of a perfect child. My husband and I really wanted to have more children just like her. And we were trying to conceive another baby since our firstborn was 4. Yet, we ended up having numerous setbacks. Doctors told us that we were too old and not healthy enough. Such rubbish. We were only 25 years old each and both felt perfectly fine. I always had time for all the chores and did everything just fine. And my husband was just as energetic and enthusiastic. Yet we still had no luck with the second child. Despite the doctors being skeptical, we kept trying to conceive another baby. And at the same time, we really enjoyed raising our clever and beautiful daughter. She was excellent at her studies, never asked for anything, and always helped me around the house. Although no one demanded anything of her, Angela really wrapped her head around the idea that you had to repay anything good that happens to you with equal acts of kindness. Still, when it was just the chores, I wasn't actually troubled by her beliefs. And then there came Mark. Our son was an unexpected gift, a literal godsend. We'd almost lost hope, and then I felt him inside my belly. I was quite afraid that Angela might become jealous. Their age difference was really significant, and she got used to being the only child. Yet, at first, everything, just like normal, was perfect. Both my daughter and my husband really pampered me when I was pregnant. Sometimes I even had to remind them that I was pregnant, not ill or something. But still, their attention felt so nice. In the evenings, Angela used to sit nearby and read fairy tales and sing lullabies to my belly, and it was just so sweet. I was sure that my husband and I got so very lucky. It seemed to us that Angela was already bonding with her unborn brother. You know, if my parents brought me a baby brother when I was her age, I'd be furious and throw a hissy fit. But Angela was just a wonderful big sister. She started caring for Mark all by herself. I didn't even have to ask her anything. She played with him, changed his diapers, bottle fed him, and all of that by her own accord. Of course, I did the majority of chores, but I knew I could rely on Angela. And that's when I made a crucial mistake. You see, when you care for a small child, you often lose the sense of time. Day after day, month after month, and somehow Mark became my main focus. I forgot everything about everyone else, and that proved to be my own undoing. Of course, I love both of them. Yet Angela was a teenager. Have you ever tried to explain something to a resentful teen girl? I didn't even get the problem at first. I couldn't believe that my Angela really felt jealous. But then she left, and it broke my heart. Only then did I understand what a bad mother I became. I proved unable to show my eldest child that I loved both of them equally. Well, I still hope that I get another chance to do so one day soon.
So who's really to blame here? Tell us your opinion in the comments. Leave some likes, share the vid with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. See you next time.